Welcome all sports fans, YouTubers, Facebookers, all social media across the nation. Uneducated never presents Uneducated Sports Talk. I'm your host, Carlos Clayton, and today we have our college casual football talk, my man, Brian Wilkerson, the host of Base on Balls. You know how we do, man. So, we're talking football today, and it's a special one. We're going to talk strictly the top 10 for this week. We will be giving the rest of our thoughts and opinions on the rest of the college world on the next episode. Look out Friday morning, it'll be uploaded. But this one, the guy will be uploaded in the morning. So, that being said, B-Dub, you know how we do. Top 10, baby boy.
All right, 1 through 4 doesn't change. Alabama, Penn State, University of Georgia, and TCU. Number 5, we got Wisconsin coming in. Ohio State 6, Clemson 7, Miami stays at number 8. Newcomer, first time in the top 10 this week, Notre Dame.
Yes.
And then Oklahoma to round out the top 10.
Man, I'm loving Notre Dame. Notre Dame is the. Cause we talked about them briefly last week. We saying, well, no, they're getting good, and if they do beat the USC, they will. We'll see. Well, obviously, we had our team Brian versus Team Carlos. I had USC winning. I made my case for USC. He had Notre Dame winning, and he made his case, and his case was absolutely right. Notre Dame smashed USC 49-14. Now, that being said, think about the resume. They beat a Michigan State team, which is
Michigan State's pretty good.
It's pretty good, yeah. They beat them. They go ahead and lose by 1 point to a Georgia team who is now basically the top 4. Who's looking like probably the second best team.
They're top 4.
So they're looking like the second best team in the nation, obviously. So now I'm like, Notre Dame could make some noise. They have a few more top tier games. North Carolina State this week. I think they play. Do they play at Stanford? Maybe.
I'm not sure.
Somebody like that. I want to say Stanford, number 20 team, but they have a few more top tier games. Let's just say that, and they can make their case if they do run the table. Notre Dame situation. I don't know if they're ACC or
they're still independent.
They're independent, they play 4 ACC games and 4 Big Ten games. Is that how it goes? Something like that in the area. But anyways, they're my surprise because now you're looking like if they can run the table, they can oust a lot of these teams by just their resume alone. That loss is now looking like a great loss.
It is a fantastic
to Georgia.
Loss.
That being said, besides Notre Dame, Penn State made their a statement game against Michigan. All white, and it was beautiful for them. Saquon Barkley is basically going to be the Heisman. He's just making all kind of plays happen. That team, I'm not saying that they're better than Georgia, Penn State, but I mean, you got to make a case, an argument for them for being at least somewhere in that talk with Bama.
Well, they just made the number 1 defense in the country look absolutely silly.
They did.
They were running around confused, just didn't know what was going on all game long.
Right.
They couldn't stop this man.
But yeah, Notre Dame is my. That's what I want to talk about. That's my team I'm looking for. Like if they run the table now, they could pass up. I'm not gonna say it, but they could pass up maybe a Clemson.
They could.
That kind of
With
stuff
one
right
loss.
there. Yeah, but how did you feel about the top 10? What's your thoughts about that?
I would have ranked Notre Dame higher.
Really?
Honestly, personally, yeah. With the only loss, I'm not necessarily. I don't mind them being in at number 9. We still have a lot of undefeated teams in the rankings, so obviously a 1-loss team. Typically, you're not going to jump them over an undefeated team, but Notre Dame is a brand name.
Right.
So, you got a 1-loss Ohio State and a 1-loss Clemson team both sitting there, 2 spots higher than they are.
Right.
Both with much worse losses on their resume than what Notre Dame did losing to Georgia. Right. So, I would make the case. I would probably actually slide them in an Ohio State spot at 6. If it would have been me doing the rankings, I probably would have slid them up there. I think they're really close to the top right now. I did not expect. I expected a more low-scoring game. I did not expect Notre Dame to come out and just run all over
I thought it'd be high
and
scoring,
do whatever they wanted to. That was kind of a shock to me. So, with their ability to do that, I would put them in at 6.
I think this is my first week where I think everything it seems right for this one particular week. I think Notre Dame is very good, but just right now, I wouldn't put them over Miami because Miami's still undefeated. They did beat a Syracuse team that beat Clemson, so they beat them 27-19. That was a victory for the Hurricanes. A pretty
Fabulous
good one now,
game.
yeah.
Fabulous
So that bodes well on their resume.
Mm-hmm.
They beat the team that beat basically the number 1 team, at that time. But I think you don't put them above Miami. You don't put Notre Dame above Clemson or Ohio State because I think Ohio State and Clemson, in my opinion, are still better than Notre Dame. So I think this week it was. I still would put Georgia number 2 over Penn State. I still would, but outside of that, I'm fine with this top 10. It's lovely. TCU being at number 4, that's they're looking like the best team in the Big 12. Not because offensively, but their defense. Them in Texas play the best defense in that conference. And we'll talk more about that next episode about Texas and the Oklahoma State game. But they play some good defense, and I think
they do.
I think, man, I'm really thinking with TCU can probably run the table just because they play defense. They can run the table in the Big 12. I'm not so sure about the Big 12 championship. I don't know how that aligns yet for this year. But I'm really loving TCU now. At first I wasn't because, I am about Big 12 teams. But I think TCU isn't your typical Big 12 team.
They've also put themselves at the upper echelon of the Big 12 as well.
Yes.
They've been, every year, I think the last 3 years we've been, hey, TCU is probably one of the Big 12's big hopes, and then they lose one, ridiculous game, and then it's over and done with. The worst particular case coming down to when there was still no championship game, TCU versus Baylor, and you're going, this was the de facto championship game, and then at the end of it, neither one of those teams ended up winning the Big 12. Oklahoma did, and we don't know what happened to that. So, they've proven themselves to be a good team over, the recent history of the squad, and they look really good sitting in there at number 4. I will say Georgia does play better defense than Penn State does.
Yes.
But Penn State's offense and Saquon Barkley are just like on a different. They're on some type of different level.
Right now, if it stands, I'm rooting for Georgia versus Penn State in the playoffs. That 2-3 seed. If it stays the way it is, man, I'm rooting for that game so bad. 'Cause I think those two teams are very similar. They both can play offense, and they both can play defense. And they both have explosive offense with great running backs, with Chubbs and Nick Chubbs, and then you have Saquon Barkley. And then you have the quarterbacks who are similarly good. I do like Sorley more because I think Sorley's a little more explosive.
He's more mobile. He can run. McSorley can run. That's what makes this Penn State offense so devastating, man. You don't know whether they did it. They ran the same play about 3 times against Michigan, and they confused them on every single play. Everybody saw the big play in the first quarter when he actually handed the ball off to Saquon Barkley and he took it to the house for 50 yards. Everybody saw that play. Early in the second quarter, they ran this play over again, basically where they're in the shotgun formation, they snap the ball, McSorley puts it in Saquon Barkley's gut, and it's a type of read option play, but everybody's shifting, the offensive line is actually shifting out to the right for Barkley to actually cut back left.
Right.
But that's actually the second read. Because that play is designed for McSorley to actually do what he did on that play, pull it back and run behind those blockers and bust up Michigan for 30 yards. And Michigan was totally and completely confused. And not only that, McSorley has a good, accurate arm, and he can make downfield throws.
Right.
So that's going to be the main difference. How does Georgia's defense, if this does in fact end up being a playoff game, which it very well might, how does Georgia's defense actually contain a running quarterback? Because he can run.
He can run the best of me. He's quick, too. He's very fast. My thing is someone being not talked about at all. Let's be honest. We haven't talked about this team at all as being a threat. Wisconsin at number 5.
Nobody's talking.
No one's talking about them at all. And I saw their schedule, and I saw the rest of the schedule. I don't think they play a single ranked team.
The rest of the way.
I saw like Indiana on there. I think maybe Michigan. They play Michigan. I think the second to last game of the season.
They may play Michigan.
Maybe, but that's looking like it's not going to be that.
They are the de facto representative on that side of the Big Ten. They'll be going back to face, in my estimation, Penn State in a rematch of last year's title game.
So I'm like, if Wisconsin, who hasn't lost a game yet, they're still undefeated, if they can go on through there and say they beat either Penn State or Ohio State, and maybe Michigan still has a chance. I'm not sure how that goes anymore. But they can probably be sneaking there at top 4. It all depends on their. It all depends on the championship game because they're like I said, the last 4 games of the season were 5. It's cupcakes. I was like, there's somebody ranked. So no one's ranked. They're the fifth best team in the league.
Yeah,
they're the team outside the top four.
Yeah.
So
that's just a product of the division of the Big Ten that they ended up in.
Right.
You know, for whatever reason, because you had to keep Ohio State and Michigan on the same side because you have to play that game every year.
I don't know why, but yeah.
Yeah, and so and they also kept Michigan State and Michigan on the same side because they play that rivalry game every year. And then Penn State has all of a sudden emerged out of the shadow of the whole Joe Paterno scandal problem deal, and all of a sudden they're a big time program now. Well, they were also on that side, and they were kind of supposed to be one of the lesser teams on that side. All of a sudden, they're winning Big Ten championships. So just as a product of all the heavyweights being on the other end, Wisconsin just kind of gets this little.
You're right. And they've won some games close, and they've blown off some teams too. So I do think that's a big if, but I think when they go to the championship, they will get beaten down severely by either Penn State or Ohio State, whoever emerges out of that group as well. But Wisconsin, nonetheless, they're still undefeated. They're like Miami. They're in there because they're undefeated, not because of their schedule, but because they haven't lost a game yet. But out of the top four, do you think TCU at any point can pass with Georgia or Penn State? Say if Georgia does lose a game, Georgia loses that one game, whether it be to Alabama, or Penn State loses that one game to Ohio State, can TCU pass them up?
The only way that TCU passes up Georgia is if they lose this week.
Okay.
If they lose the Florida Georgia game this week, because there's no other game on the schedule that they shouldn't even lose this game. But rivalry games,
you never know.
You never know. So if they lose this game, they could pass them up. If Georgia goes into the SEC championship undefeated and loses to Alabama, that is not good enough for me to put TCU ahead of them, even if they go undefeated and win the Big 12.
I'm looking
because the caliber of opponent.
Right.
You got to look at it at that point. One loss Georgia, whose only loss is to Alabama, who is obviously undefeated, presumably undefeated at this point. You just can't do that. Penn State, if they lose to Ohio State, lose the national championship game, lose the Big Ten championship game, and TCU is a Big 12 champion, I can see them jumping that as well.
One more question before we kind of wrap it up. OU is sitting at number 10. OU, how many losses they have again? 2. And they're at number 10. I'm thinking, it's... Because their resumes, they still beat Ohio State, which is... So they're basically rooting for Ohio State to probably win this game. But is there any chance OU can get in the top 4 by the time? No chance at all. I'm with you on that. I don't see any chance. I mean, eventually they have to play TCU. If they could beat TCU, but you need a lot of help. I think a 2-loss OU team is better than a 1-loss TCU team if that 1 loss came from OU. I think that. But outside of that, like you said, it's going to be tough for you to get in there, man. Yeah, well, yeah. But I think that I still think on paper they're a better team. They're the best team in the Big 12. Right. They just find some ways to lose every single time.
Ahead of next week's official unveiling of the first college football playoff rankings of this season, so these rankings will come out after this week's games. If Penn State beats Ohio State this week, do you put them at number 1?
Oh, no. I can't.
They've beaten Michigan.
Yes.
They've beaten Iowa on the road.
Yes.
And they've beaten Ohio State in Columbus.
No,
at this point in the season. Do you put them ahead of Alabama if they win this game?
I still don't. I mean, but the good part about it, if it stays 1 and 2, we'll see them in the championship. But I mean, the 1 and 2 doesn't make a difference because there's not, whatever. No one's playing at their actual home. But Alabama, they've been won pretty much all year. Except when Clemson was won, I believe, 2 weeks ago before they lost to Syracuse. But it's been Bama 1 pretty much the whole entire year. I wouldn't change it because I still think Bama is clearly the best team in the nation. They just haven't had the competition, maybe. When Florida State had their quarterback.
Exactly.
Yeah, when Florida State had their quarterback, they beat we thought it was a game Florida State team, and we thought that. And that's pretty much the only competition.
That's what it is for me. You have to do this on the merit of their schedule.
Right.
They beat Michigan. They beat Ohio State.
Right.
They beat Iowa on the road. So that's 2 road games. Not to mention their 2 marquee games are 2 road games and one home victory. And Alabama hasn't played that. They haven't played that caliber of opponent in their schedule. So if Penn State does win this game this week, I think they're number 1.
You put them
I'm putting them in at number 1.
You know what? If they go out there and they convincingly beat up Ohio State, we could make a case for them being number 1. But I would still put Alabama number 1 just because, I mean, Alabama's lost 3 games in 4 years. It feels like.
True.
So
with that being said, y'all stay tuned for the second half. We got a whole lot more to talk about. A couple of top 25 matchups in the Big 12 that don't involve Oklahoma or the University of Texas. That's kind of crazy. And also, we're going to talk a whole lot more about that Penn State-Ohio State game, and we're going to go over Notre Dame versus NC State as well. So y'all stay tuned for the other half of this show on Friday.
Right. Got a lot to talk about, man. So Uneducated Network, you know how we do it, man. Got our shirts in there. Boy, B-Dub rocking the shirt now. With that being said, you guys, this is our college casual football talk. Stay tuned for Friday. Guys know what it is. Stay smart. Stay educated. Peace.